Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of The Power of Stories with Doctors Schuster and Oxley. Today we have a special guest, Anand Verma, who contributed to our third book and is an expert in all things artificial intelligence. And it just struck me, Helmut, as I was preparing for the podcast. We talk about stories. What will be the story of artificial intelligence if we could fast forward 10, 20, 30 years into the future when things have settled and we know a little bit more? What will its story be? Artificial intelligence is one of the most transformative, but perhaps one of the most misunderstood forces of our time. AI is everywhere, and yet the headlines are somewhat sensational. There's a lot of scaremongering. A lot of people in the workplaces are somewhat worried about their jobs. There are questions about what remains uniquely human and what will be the domain of artificial intelligence. So it just occurred to me as writers of books, will there still be human-created books 20 to 30 years from now? Will the role of authors change? And these seem like real questions, but they're again somewhat defensive questions. They sort of focus on what we might lose because of artificial intelligence. And I think we're falling into this space of having a blind spot of what we might gain. It's perhaps human instinct to worry about when something changes, what we're going to have to give up, and then we don't think so much about what we might gain. And I found a couple of quotes, and I wonder whether or not these might be the stories. So Satya Nadella of Microsoft, he says, AI is not here to replace humans, it's here to empower them, which is very often the almost cliche that you hear in this space. And then Fei-Fei Li, who reminds us the future of AI should be human-centered, enhancing our abilities rather than replacing them. Again, this seems to make sense, but is indeed that going to be our future? And then one of my favorite authors, Isaac Asimov, foresaw the potential, 70 years ago? And he said, and I like this quote the most, "I do not fear computers, I fear the lack of them." And I think that was quite prophetic in some senses in terms of our human evolution. So what might we gain that we're missing out on? So I thought about the possibility that artificial intelligence can decode hidden languages in our biology and our DNA and cure diseases that are currently incurable. I thought about the fragile ecosystem, particularly given our guest today, and how we can help repair the environment, how we can model and restore entire climates. How about curing world hunger? How about curing poverty? They seem to be aspirations that we've, for centuries, worried about. Perhaps AI can solve that. How about personalized education? That every learner in every language gets a personalized curriculum, a personalized coach. And how about life in our universe, livable environments, even ways to travel to them? I mean, if artificial intelligence can make a dent in those 5 things, it seems to me that it's going to be quite transformative. And I just thought that I'd share that today and say, Helmut, when you think about artificial intelligence, and obviously we talk about stories in this podcast, do you have a prediction of what the story will be for artificial intelligence 20 or 30 years from now?
Well, David, thank you for asking the question. I have to say, David and I have a slightly different perspective on AI. We both agree it's going to transform the world, transforms everything. I think it will take much longer than we all believe. I think it will take quantum computing and many other things to really fully materialize. I think now, 150 years on, we have a pretty positive view of the industrial revolution. I think in 30 years from now, we're going to call it the smart or intelligent revolution. And I really think in history books, we'll write about social mobility. I think for all our human existence, education was a very exclusive thing for the privileged. I do believe that AI will be the source of social mobility for so many people who currently don't have access to education. And for that reason, I believe it will help in all the dimensions you said, David. I think it will help with world hunger, with disease, but social inequality, I think that is going to change within the next 30, 40, 50 years. As I said, I think it's going to probably take a bit longer than we all think, wish, or hope for. But I think some of the biggest problems, in particular climate change, will be sorted out through AI. and people like Anand who embrace AI wholeheartedly and drive it very hard and are very visionary in their approach to AI.
That seems like a good point to introduce Anand. We're very, very happy to have Anand Verma joining us today. Anand's been a strong supporter of the Drs. Schuster and Oxley journey to this point, and so much so that he is a feature of our third book, available in all good booksellers on November the 4th, Artificial Death of a Career. Anand Verma is the CEO of Expect AI, a company pioneering AI solutions that amplify human creativity and professional potential on environmental issues, focused on CO2 reduction, focused on carbon footprint and how to make it more efficient and help companies save money in the process. Born and raised in India, Anand combines his heritage with a very global perspective, blending technical expertise with a human-centered innovation. His professional and entrepreneurial track record is extraordinarily impressive. He built a business called Brilliant Basics, which he sold to Infosys, where he worked for some years to scale the business and made a very successful exit. Now he, with Expect AI, is focusing on the tools that we talked about to unleash SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses' potential for efficiency while being environmentally friendly. He's a devoted family man. We've had the pleasure of meeting his son at a couple of our book launch events. Anand draws inspiration from his loved ones and brings a sense of care to his professional vision. He's also, as I said, a longtime friend of the Dr. Schuster and Oxley journey. So let me turn it over to Anand. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, David and Helmut. First of all, thanks for having me, and congratulations on your upcoming book release as well. I'm always excited to see you thrive and read this wonderful case studies and, I have to say, practical tips, right, to make us better at our jobs and especially focus on young people as well. So really excited to see what to.
Thank you. Now, Helmut's going to grill you with some questions, I think.
Yeah,
as always.
Just, and no, they're nice questions. I mean, what people probably don't know, then Anand basically reads books. I think he reads more books than us combined, David. And we have this tradition that we share what we read. And so I'm really interested, what book are you currently reading? And you're probably reading like 10 books at the same time. But what is currently the book you're basically reading?
Yeah, I think I'm reading 2 books, not 10, 2 books in parallel. So there is a great book by Robin Sharma, The Everyday Hero Manifesto, which is just incredible. And it talks about how your physical, spiritual, mental, biological strength can make you a better at your job, better at your family, and so on and so forth. Really, I always go back to that book whenever I'm feeling a bit kind of down and tired and so on and so forth. And the other one, which is a classic, I think you guys must have read it many times, is How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is Dale Carnegie. And I was reading it on the plane actually last week, and I love that book because it's like, you talk about AI. I feel that even the AI is coming at, in spades. The book was written in 19s, I think, and still a classic, right? That kind of human connection, how humans do business and how build relationships and stuff. So I think for me, those 2 books right now, but I love the Dale Carnegie one.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I thought you were mentioning 4 books because I mean, Anand is a reader. He really reads a lot. Yeah. So now that's really, Anand, you're a family man, and you really enjoy spending time. You're very, very caring father, husband. What is your favorite destination for a family trip?
I think I have to say Vancouver, right? So we were quite privileged to go to Vancouver just before COVID, and we had 3 weeks there. And having sold my company and have some money in the bank, we really treated ourselves to go to Vancouver. We went to Seattle, Vancouver, Whistler in summer, and I have to say, what a great city of all kinds of water and mountain and coffee shops and so on and so forth. I have to choose Vancouver above every other destination for the family.
Now, next question really is about food, and Anand has taken me to some of the most amazing restaurants. So what is your number one Indian tip in London? And there are many. There are many.
There are many.
You have to make a choice now.
I think London is blessed with great food generally, but certainly is a capital for great Indian cuisine. So one is called Bombay Brasserie, which is not that far from South Kensington. And I know the chef Sriram really, really well, the head chef. And he always lays out this amazing feast for us. And we are vegetarian. So, what a treat to have wonderful vegetarian, tasty food in front of you. So Bombay Brasserie, and Sriram Ailur is the head chef there. So worth kind of looking out for him.
That's excellent. Now, two more questions. And the one thing is really which leader, and I keep the question very broad, in the AI space do you really admire and why?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I started the company Expect AI, I always thought that purpose is really important to build a company because when money is in abundance, you think about why do you join a company, and for me it's climate. But one leader, Demis Hassabis, who is DeepMind's founder, and in fact he didn't grow, he grew up very close to where I live now. He's just changed the game, right? He started AI when AI was not popular, and he believed in the power of AI to solve real issues that David was describing around healthcare, around finding new kind of proteins and so on and so forth. So yeah, he's an inspiration for me.
Yeah, actually, very good choice because hardly anyone knows his name, which I find really interesting.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize that he transformed the space of AI. So, the last thing isn't really just like, I think it's a question I like to ask. What is your one wish for the future?
My wish will be the amplification of human connection, just like we're doing stuff. I think AI should take away all the things that we waste time on and give us more time for each other. And I'm a family man, like you both know. I get a lot of energy from my family, and I believe that connection is really important. I think today there is a love and hate relationship with AI, but I really think that AI should be able to give us more time for ourselves and our families and our relationship, friends, and so on and so forth.
Wonderful dream and wish. And
That requires some applause, I think.
David.
So, sorry. And over to you now, really, to share your story. Thank you for offering to do so.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. And David, you and I collaborated on writing that story in the book that's coming out from both of you. And the story is about resilience and hardship and creativity and never giving up. And I always find that has helped me a lot being an entrepreneur. And it's so hard running a company from nothing. And I really believe that my childhood, I grew up in a family of 4 siblings, so 5 in total. My dad was not very rich. We grew up in a very modest circumstances, but we had the most loving family. And like you said, I grew up in India, but I was always this kind of quite creative and ingenious about my ideas. I was, at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I was like always thinking about how can I do things differently? How do I not take no for an answer? And I think that kind of mindset of creativity, and I used to be a very good kind of sketch person. So I used to sketch things. I'm a visual guy. Could sketch things, and that helps a lot putting things on paper and sketching ideas. So one is, look, when all the doors close, you got to keep fighting until a door opens, and door will open. It's just a matter of time, right? So that's one thing I would share. I went to pretty modest kind of what we call as a Hindi medium school, which is I didn't even know how to speak English until the age of 13, 14. And then my dad kind of found this school. He begged the headmaster to kind of take me, and I wasn't very good at studies at that age. And something kind of changed in me, and I'm like, this is my opportunity, this is my chance, this is my fortune speaking to me. And I did really well study wise. I learned English. I'm a very fast learner, but if my dad hadn't fought for me and given me that opportunity to be here, I give my full credit to him. And then if I kind of dial forward a few more years, at the age of 18, I didn't want to go through the Indian education system because it's very competitive. So imagine this, right? So 10 million people are applying for a place in the best university, and only 2,000 people get in, right? I felt like I need to find my own way, and I started applying for SATs in the US, and not knowing that we didn't have money to kind of even send me to the US, but I just wanted to get, kind of take the chance, and in the UK and Australia and so on and so forth. And one fine day, my dad came and my brother came to me and said, there's a scholarship that is opened up in an university in the UK. Do you want to apply for it? And I applied for it, and I was one of two international students who got the scholarship. And I was the first one in my family to take a plane from Calcutta to London in the coldest month of the year in December. And I didn't have the clothes. My mom has packed pressure cooker and saucepans and God knows what in the bag to bring it. They didn't know any better, but just having that opportunity and kind of coming to this country, and this country has given me a lot of ideas and kind of success and so on and so forth. So I'm extremely grateful. But if my dad had said no, or if I had said no or didn't try different avenues, I wouldn't have been here, right? So I'm really thankful for that. So the creativity, resilience really gets tested out when nobody's there to support you and you have to fight for yourself. And I think in the process, making friends and being kind to each other, and almost 30 years later, I'm here. 3 businesses, fourth startup now. I was a CEO of a large corporate, and I always look back and say, what did I learn from my early childhood, and why that still makes an impact for me. And that's why Expect AI is so special, because I feel that even though sometimes, the doors can slapped in my face, I still have to keep trying and keep pushing and keep kind of doing my best. Because if I don't do it, then who will? But you have to be creative. You have to be resilient. You have to face those hardships, but never give up. Never, never give up. That's one thing I say to my team and young entrepreneurs, never give up. To my own son, I'll say that never give up. Things will happen. You just have to keep going. So that's my story, but I can go on forever, as you can see, but four to five.
One of the things that you and I explored, and your story and the way that you tell it really sort of evokes this sense of awe and admiration for the desire to keep going and to persevere and to be resilient. But my own impression, thinking of my own career, is that as you get older, that becomes a little bit harder. You start to get surrounded by more comfortable environments, that the world hopefully is a little bit easier to live in. And so that burning need that you tell yourself in your teens and your early 20s starts to evaporate. In your case, you've kept that fire burning, and I find that extraordinary. I mean, clearly you are an extraordinary individual, but I wonder whether or not, how do you reflect on how this burning fire continues to drive you on?
It is tiring for sure. And I did a test called positive intelligence test a few years ago. And basically what they do is they look at your saboteurs, what is really sabotaging you. And I'm being very open for your audience, because, I like being vulnerable in these kind of podcasts. And I feel that one is like a fear of going back to how I grew up. Not that I had very loving childhood, but I think not having things and access to, comfort, if I can use that word carefully. There's a fear that if I don't do my best today, I'll go back to how it was 30 years ago. That's one thing. And I know that another great leader, Indra Nooyi, who was the PepsiCo's chairwoman and CEO, kind of talks about this issue about why you work so hard every day. You've got everything. And I feel that it's kind of that. And the second is that we are here in this world to make an impact. And I think if we can put our best foot forward and be a leading example for our colleagues, our friends, our family, our kids, I think that means a lot to me from a responsibility perspective. Can I keep doing it for another 30, 40 years? I don't know, but I know that today where I am, I feel that I need to put my best foot forward in everything that I do because of that fear. So just talking about that positive intelligence test, one of the saboteurs is this kind of fear that I have got about going back to where I was and not moving forward. I don't know if that answers your questions, David, but that's a big driver for me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a great answer for me. For me, to really the question, because you have started a number of companies, you had extremely successful exit, you were very successful in a corporate context with the company that bought your company, and yet you decided, just basically rather than leaving a comfortable CEO life, You decided to start a new company in a completely different field in the space of climate. What was it that motivated you to do that? What was it that inspired you to do that?
I think COVID was a big factor. If you ask my wife, she's like, "Oh, you're never home for lunch or dinner on time. You're always working so hard," and so on and so forth. The COVID was a massive reset for us, right? This is the first time we are hunkered down in our house, all the kids, our dog, all in one place, and we're having breakfast, lunch, dinner together. We're cooking, and we're kind of enjoying this kind of joy of being together. And I looked at the skies, I think maybe in July 2020, and it's completely blue and beautiful. The stars can be seen and stuff. And I realized that climate is one of the biggest challenges of our lifetime, climate change. And there's so many people talking about it, activism, but very few people were actually taking the action to do something about it. And that's the path I felt that I was designed to do. And I came from AI background. I came from business background. I came from data background. I said, if we combine these three skill sets and try to kind of bring this relationship between profitability and climate so that people can get rewarded for taking the right environmental and efficiency decisions, what's not to like about it? So, and I had never built like this core, hardcore, deep tech product in the past. So it was a bit of a personal kind of challenge as well. But I felt that there was an opportunity. There was a business opportunity. There was a timeliness about it, and then there is a personal kind of challenge. And of course, it was a purposeful company that I can be an example for my kids and the young stars out there. So that was my thesis, but I really believe the same way as I did in July 2020.
Okay. This arc from the burning desire, from a sense of need, a sense of having to do it because there were no alternatives, has arced in your storyline through this deep sense of being connected to who you are and what drives you, has now moved into a sense of doing something for the sake of doing it. It's a purpose. It's a challenge. It's challenging yourself, but it's also doing something that has meaning. And I think this is something that we struggle with in our careers. And you've done it so successfully. It's lovely to highlight it and say, when we start out in our teens and 20s, we need to get a job, any job to some extent, and then we need to get a foot on the rung and then move up and then pay some bills and be able to establish ourselves, if you will, prove that we can compete. This is why I think your feature in Artificial Death of a Career is so important, because you've demonstrated, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? Once I've done this, where do I go? How aware are you of this? Is it something that's very conscious, or is it just quite intuitive? You do it because it feels quite natural?
One. I think my wife will say that you don't say no to things easily. And I know the helmet will say that to me, because you say yes to opportunities that come to you. I think this one was very conscious, right? I think and I'll kind of go around the block a little bit on this topic. So I'm interviewing somebody from a very large AI company right now to join us. And I asked him, why would you join us compared to another large AI company? And he said, I'm looking for a purpose in my work, right? And I feel that is such a great attraction for people. When there's a purpose aligned to the work, you feel really connected to what you do. You put your best foot forward, right? So I think this one felt like the knock on the door for me, the calling. If I can use a spiritual word, this was a calling for me. It just took a bit of time to kind of shape the proposition and the narrative, right? So I'm still on that learning journey, but I feel that there was a calling for me to do something in this space and bring your best self to that, solving that problem, which is climate related. But it took us a little bit of time to kind of get the focus on what is that we're going to solve and how.
Just one question, which I find very interesting. And you have experienced large corporate life, and you've experienced the wonders of like startups. So could you just like somehow tell us, what's the good thing about large corporates and what's the excitement about like startups? And I think our listeners who are split 50-50 would find that very interesting.
I think, look, I think depending on the age you're at, I think large company is very good at training young stars, young people, how to do research, how to do a workshop, how to deal with stress, and of course, on the back of it, you get a nice paycheck. Um, and people get used to that paycheck, right? It's like that security is always there. And ask any large company leader, he's like, oh, I want to start something on my own, but I can't because of the risk, or I lose out that monthly paycheck and so on and so forth. And by the way, I'm my own culprit in that situation, but taking risk is always hard. So what is good about large companies is training, for sure. I joined a company called Sapient, and I got abundance of training on how to run workshops, how to create a value-based company, how to deal with complex problems, and so on and so forth. Without that, I would not be building the company with the value system embedded, right? So I learned a lot. However, I also feel that so much creativity is crushed in large company because you happen to be a number, because you have to pay your dues for the salary you're getting on a monthly basis. I'm not suggesting that everybody should leave the large company and start their own entrepreneurship venture, but I think I really encourage people to think about, in the era of AI, creating things is much more easier and distributing them is much more easier. So there is an opportunity of a lifetime to build companies today than ever before with a less number of people and so on and so forth. So what's not so nice about large companies, for me, my perspective, is politics, right? Every time I was a CEO of a very large media and advertising company, and I was constantly looking back to see who's going to stab me next, right? And people are there for your life in many ways, but that's the price you pay for getting a pretty decent paycheck. I don't associate myself with large companies because I'm an ideas person, creative person, goes back to my childhood again with sketching and ideation. I feel that that's who I am, and I'm pretty comfortable. And recently, my son, who is 19 years old, has started his venture on his own. Now, he got that confidence because he's staying at home. He doesn't have any bills to pay. He can take that risk. I think sometimes risk taking is, you have to be very calculated and very planned, but there is more opportunity today to do something of your own than in the past. So pros and cons, right? And I have a lot of respect for my large company friends and my own clients. I think it's horses for courses in my view, but opportunity is there. If you're creative, driven, want to do something of your own and solve a real problem, opportunities are in abundance today than ever.
Do you think it's an advantage to have done
I think
both?
so. I really think so. Because if I wasn't in Sapient, and by the way, Sapient was like 20,000 people company, and I grew through the ranks. I wouldn't have left Sapient ever unless and until a headhunter called me to be the CEO of this company called Interpublic Group. But having gone through that process and dealing with large companies and large clients, I'm in a client meeting right now. Before this meeting and before this podcast, my behavior is, I understand their problem, I understand their pain points, I understand how they operate. That understanding is really, really rewarding in closing deals and kind of writing proposals and so on and so forth. So I think for me it's very advantageous. But I also know that a lot of entrepreneurs have never worked in large companies and they feel that they're unemployable as well. But I can understand why is the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen Anand, I've seen you dealing with boards, and I found that really that's one of your superpowers, that you understand, that you know how boards think, and you know how you need to present. I think that is very, very important. I think a very important skill.
So just as we sort of come to a conclusion in this podcast episode, I want to pick up on a couple of themes and then just maybe go around and get your thoughts on it. I think I'm struck by a couple of things. The first is this drive, and I describe it as a fire because I can't think of another way to describe it, but there is this source of energy, boundless energy with Anand, that I think many of us struggle. It sort of evaporates in our careers. It sort of gets to a point where perhaps in our 30s or 40s, other things in our life start to become more important. And Anand has managed to harness it. And I think my observation is it's because he's reinvented what it is. So rather than it just be one thing, it has become multiple things, right? So let me try this, let me try that, let me have a go at this. And each one has sort of reignited the fire. I sort of want to test is that a lesson for people as we enter the AI era and we think about We wrote a couple of articles, which I'm very fond of, that says, in 2034, the world will be ruled by a all-powerful artificial intelligence. So should I still try to be an accountant? As a means by which to try and bring out this dilemma of how do you make yourself future-proof when the world is changing so rapidly, and we continue to throw these labels around. I'm sure there are parents in India in particular say, be a doctor, be an engineer, what was the other thing, a lawyer or an accountant. Is that true? Does that need to change? And from your own perspective, Anand, do you see the labeling as unhelpful? And
Yeah, I
how
mean, I
have you
think just to
resisted
your
that?
first point, David, I think the fire needs the fuel, right? Or energy, right? So I think my energy comes from my family, and luckily I'm quite privileged to be a husband of Veena and a father of two wonderful kids, and that gives me a lot of energy. The second is I do think the jobs and career landscape will change, but my belief is that people always talk about dystopia of AI rather than utopia of AI, and I call AI more like an amplified intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, right? So how can humans in the loop operate with AI to make their goals, be it family or life or health or whatever that happens to be? I feel those use cases are really important to me. And I do believe that, my previous generation wanted me to be an engineer or computer scientist. But my generation, I don't want my son to be a computer scientist or coder, for example, because AI can write a lot of code by itself, right? That's one of the big use cases. So, but how do you bring the creativity? He's a musician. Ruhan is a musician, but he's using AI to make the music better, to connect musicians together, right? So I feel that new genre will appear, new ideas will come, new opportunities will come. Like any industrial revolution or AI revolution or digital revolution, new things have always happened, right? But I think Helmut said that earlier, which is we overestimate what can be done in a short time and underestimate what will be done in the longer time. And I think that's the process we are going through the hype curve. But I only see opportunities. But in the opportunities comes a number of other threats in the process that we have to navigate. And sometimes, take it with a pinch of salt as well, right? Because it can be quite overwhelming.
Helmut, what are your reflections?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much agree with that. Do think the world is going to change. I do think it will take longer. I think there's a hype curve. I think there will be correction, but ultimately AI is going to change the world. And I normally ask our guests to give one tip, one career advice. And in your case, I would ask you, and Anand is also like part of the AFS Youth Assembly. And so we had the opportunity to engage with many young people. And as you probably realize, they all have many questions. They're all a bit confused. They don't know what to do with their life, with their future. What is the one advice you would give this age group? Students, early 20s, mid 20s. What is the one advice you would give them to be ready to survive, and not only survive, but thrive in an AI-enabled
I'll give the same
future?
advice to my son, right? So this is not protecting my advice for anyone else. I think the biggest advice is that this is an opportunity of a lifetime. AI world. Be open, learn the old stuff, learn the new stuff, and make sure that it's about attitude, not aptitude. Don't feel disheartened that you don't have a PhD or MSc or BSc, whatever the degrees, because it's not about the knowledge. All the human knowledge is within the grasp of your kind of prompt, if I may. The question is, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? And that's the impact that we have, right? So that's what I think I give the advice. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
That's fantastic. So, Anand, final question, Expect AI, where can we find out more? Where can the viewers engage with it? What would it be that you
So
would
yeah, thank you for the plug.
like to connect them up with?
expectai.com or una.expectai.com. Our mission is to help every business increase their profit while creating lower emissions. And they can do that on our platform. And we're doing something really, really exciting and giving them their co-pilot, their chief sustainability officer powered by AI. And I'm really excited about that. We can potentially help 330 million SMEs globally, and we're here for that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you, gentlemen, for the conversation. It's been extraordinary. Artificial intelligence and the spectre of how things change, it does create this fear in a lot of people, anxiety about what it's going to mean. And there are various surveys, one of which last year caught my eye in the UK, that said 90% of the population believe that artificial intelligence is an existential threat to the human race, which, if that's not scary, I don't know what is. But a lot of this is stoked by Hollywood and The Matrix, and my favorite was HAL in 2001 Space Odyssey. But this context is unhelpful because it tends to, it's fear mongering, and it subdues or makes people run and hide rather than sort of embrace it and go out there and be inquisitive. So if this podcast has done something to stoke people's curiosity, perhaps reach out to Anand and ask him for some mentorship and advice in the process, then all the better for it. We've done some small good for the world. This podcast is a series of podcasts that we have out there now under the Doctors Schuster and Oxley, The Power of Stories. If you'd like to listen to more of them, let me give you a link here in the screen. One thing that Helmut's very fond of telling people is that if you like the podcast, you will love the books. This is a catchphrase of his that he repeats quite often, daily at least. So check out our books. The third book, which features Anand's story, is out on November the 4th. And finally, we have some other social media content, Instagram, LinkedIn, and an award-winning website, which I'm sure that you should check out if you haven't already. You won't be disappointed. Let me close. So I'm going to say goodbye.
No, thank you so much.
And Herr Schuster.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. It's always an inspiration talking to you, talking with you. And until next
Take
time.
care.
Servus
Bye-bye.
und auf Wiedersehen as always.